In that intro, did I just nuke a bunch of peasants with a fireball? I did. I sure did. So today we're talking about the Sorcerer. Now today's build will be the last build in my set of 4 that I was initially making. This is my go-to party composition. I already did our martial frontliner paladin. I did our dexterity range character with a ranger. And then I did our support healer utility cleric. And today we're doing our damage dealing spellcaster, the Sorcerer. If you've seen my previous videos, you know that I use Sorcerer a lot. If this was a tier list category, Sorcerer would be S tier every time for me. Now, before we get into the build, if you guys like Baldur's Gate 3 content, consider liking and subscribing. I've been kind of blown away by the reception and the engagement from everybody. I was just kind of finding my footing with these videos. So thank you to everybody. Now these builds in general that I've been doing so far are not solo based. They are based on a party composition. So I will be bringing up during leveling parts where you grab a certain spell and I'll reference it to a previous build on what you should be using it for. You'll kind of know what I'm talking about later on. But I just want to get that out of the way. So without further ado, let's get into our Sorcerer. Also, I had to change this to Gale because Will is he bugs out so many times with Fireball. It's just kind of a pain in the butt. Anywho, alright, we got our Sorcerer here. We have Gale. Let's go through the cantrips real quick. You can pick a lot of these don't really that matter much. Firebolt is very handy. Friendship is also good. And then Mage Hand. And then anything else is really up to you. I went with Shocking Grasp just for a more melee option, but a lot of these are good. It's just really come down to preference. The only one that's I think is a must pick is Firebolt, because if you can't tell, we're going with a fire sorcerer. So we're very original here. For spells, we are definitely going to go with Shield. I've already talked about this many a times, but this is one of the best reactions. And then Magic Missile. So we'll talk about this a little bit later on, but this is one of your ways to deal with enemies that are specifically immune to fire. Not resistant to fire, immune. So Magic Missile is going to be very, very handy. For our subclass, we're going with the Draconic Bloodline, and we will go with Fire. And our ability points should be something like this. We want to focus on Charisma, Constitution is pretty important, and then Dexterity for high initiative rolls. A little bit of Wisdom, because a lot of a lot of attacks do check your Wisdom, like Hold Person, that the enemies will try to cast upon you. So just a little bit of Wisdom does help out. So let's get into it, and that should take us to level 2. Alright, we got level 2 here. This is where we start to get our meta magic, which is very important. But for this first spell here, really take what you want. Mage Armor is pretty good because we're not going to be using any heavy armor. You could also go with Enhanced Leap, but we'll just go with Mage Armor. Also, Chromatic Orb, you can change this into a fire attack. I don't think that's entirely necessary to take a Chromatic Orb, but it is an option. But right now I'm just going to take Magic Armor. And then for our meta magic, Twin is always helpful if you want to throw 2 Firebolts, and then Extended. This will be useful later on. So let's get to level 3. And now at level 3, we get our level 2 spells. Really, a lot of these level 2 spells are kind of whatever. You kind of can just pick whatever you want. I'm just fucking kidding. Take Scorching Ray. Scorching Ray is really good. It's a really good fire spell. Definitely pick this one first. This is going to be a great damage dealing source for you early on, and it continues to scale throughout the game of being just a great option for either single target or just hitting, just dishing out a bunch of damage to a party and allocating damage appropriately. Anyways, Scorching Ray, really good, really good. And then for our first second tier of meta magic, so with being a spellcaster, we're going to struggle a little bit with finding things to do with our bonus action. You should always keep potions and stuff like that on, or a two hand crossbows and have use that as a bonus action. But Quicken is also going to help us with this. So we're taking Quicken first. Level 4, we get another cantrip. Let's check again. Yep, level 4, we get another cantrip. Again, just pick kind of what you want here. These light sources can be helpful in Act 2, but I would take actually light over Dancing Light, because this is just until Long Rest, where this is a concentration, and we don't want to use our concentration on something like that. For spells, we get another level 2. I would go with Misty Step for that mobility. That's just a great choice. Feat-wise, there's a couple options we can do here. We can do Ability Score Improvement and just bump our Charisma up to 18. It's not a bad choice. or you can go with Elemental Adept, which will make our fire spells specifically. Anybody who is resistant to fire spells, it'll ignore their resistance. So you'll just get full damage on fire spells. And also, we can't roll 1 when we're doing our attack rolls with fire spells. So either or, I'm going to take... So here's the thing about this in the beginning of the game is, like our martial classes, you can kind of struggle to hit with your spells. So ability and score improvement is going to help us the most, but we're going to be receiving bless from our cleric. So this one's kind of a toss-up. I'm going to go with just the charisma boost for now. You're going to be getting this later on, so it's just a matter of when you want to pick them. So that takes us to level 5. This is where we get the build, baby. Fireball. Now you're going to be limited on how many times you can use this at first, but this build is only going to get stronger and stronger the more spell slots you get, so you can cast more fireballs. So just know in the beginning, you just want to use fireballs for those big targets and not spam it all the time, or else you're going to run out of spell slots. So let's move on to level 6. And then we got level 6 here. There's a couple options we could take. We could take Counterspell, and we also can take Haste. Damage abilities wise, I mean, we're covered with Fireball. I'm going to pick probably Haste. You know, you can never go wrong with just taking Haste. It's just such a great spell, especially a concentration. And currently we're not concentrating on anything, but actually next level we will be. But this will be the end of Act 1, generally, give or take a level. So 1 through 6 is generally Act 1. And so what is your character going to be doing in Act 1? As a spellcaster? Well, you're going to be using Firebolt a lot. And then you're also going to be using Magic Missile. Magic Missile is probably going to be your go-to spell just for damage because it's guaranteed damage and it hits pretty well. Your other spells will basically be Circumstantial. Scorching Ray will be your biggest damage dealer in general. But yeah, so you want to save that for larger targets, or if you want to take out a bunch of smaller targets and they have low enough health. But yeah, those are the main spells you're going to be focusing on, you know, and then reacting with shield when necessary. That'll always be just a great reaction. But you know, you got to be a little careful on how you're using your spell slots. So keep that in mind. Firebolt is going to scale up. I think at level 5 it goes to, was it 2d20 or is it 1d20? Anyways, it doubles its damage and it turns out to be really good. So don't sleep on just using that. You know, I would just don't always blow your load on fireballs. Basically, is what I'm trying to say when you're in Act 1. So we can now move to Act 2, which will be around level 7 to 10, give or take a level. And let's jump into that. So level 7 here, beginning of Act 2. So I mentioned earlier how Haste, we're not going to be maybe using it so super long as our concentration because we get now greater invisibility as a level 4 spell. This is the spell we're going to want to cast on our ranger. In our ranger build, I talked about that we would have somebody who would be casting this on us. This is our sorcerer. They're going to be doing this for us. This is going to be their concentration that they're going to be focusing on. Now, you don't need to be doing this all the time, just, you know, for tough encounters, but we also have extended meta magic, which will make this last for 20 turns for whatever reason, if you want your ranger to be invisible for 20 turns. So just, it's a really nice synergy with your ranger, and they're basically relying on this, so make sure to grab it for them if you are doing a similar setup. If not, Haste is perfectly a great concentration to have. And with that, we can move on to level 8, where we're going to get our second feat. We also get another level 4 spell. If you want, this is about the time I probably take Counter Spell. Now, our cleric should actually be the one that prioritizes Counter Spell, but just in case it doesn't proc for them, or for whatever reason, if they can't, if there's a second spell, it's nice to have the sorcerer be a backup counterspell character. And then for our feat, we're going to take what we didn't take at the first level 4, which is our elemental adept, and we're going to take fire. So now everything that's resistant to fire, our fire spells will ignore, which is really nice. So we're going to move on to level 9. All right, level 9, I think we get level 5 spells. We sure do. Now, these aren't anything I would actually pick at the moment, still in Act 2. I would actually pick Confusion here. This is going to be very handy for a lot of tough encounters, boss fights. Confusion's very good. I would not sleep on the skill, especially if when you pair this with Heightened, which we will get as our next meta magic. So we don't have it right now, but we will. So just kind of, I would just put this one in your bank for now. And then we can move on to level 10. Level 10, this is basically going to be the end of Act 2 for us. We get another cantrip. At this point, it really doesn't matter. Illusion's fine. Here, you can basically take whatever you want. Telekinesis is a fun one to mess around with. I'm just going to take that one. Also, Hold Monster if you want to Heightened and cast that. It's not a bad idea either. For our Meta Magic, we do need that Heightened now, which is very handy. So that'll be the end of Act 2 for us. So what's really different for Act 2? Well, we can throw a lot more fireballs, and that's about it. Oh, and then I guess we're also using greater invisibility on our ranger character. But other than that, just be smart with your spells. You don't need to blow your load all the time with them. But Baldur's Gate 3, it does throw a lot of food at you. So don't think that you can't just keep short resting and long resting, because there's definitely more than enough food to go around to where. So if you do just want to cast fireballs for every encounter, you sure as hell can do that. And I forgot to mention, yeah, at level 6 we picked up a Draconic line, which will add our charisma modifier to the fire, or the damage type that we took for our bloodline, and we took fire. So now all of our fire abilities get our charisma modifier to them. So that is also nice for a little bit more damage. But so that's Act 2. Now we're going to move into Act 3. Now Act 3, level 11, we get Fly, which is a nice movement option. Not bad, not bad. Spell wise, we got some good choices here. So my favorite pick for the last fight in particular is Globe of Invulnerability. This will basically make that fight pretty trivial, if you know what I mean. So if you don't know, just keep that in your bank. It's going to be very, very helpful, and we can move on to level 12. So level 12 spell wise, so this last pick is kind of up to you. Now, there are a few fights, like I said earlier, where there are enemies who are completely invulnerable to fire. So this is not a bad time to pick up something like Lightning Bolt or Chain Lightning. I would actually just get Lightning Bolt because it is a lower spell. So because this you could only cast once, and then you'd have to do, some spell recovery chicanery to get this back. So I would actually go with Lightning Bolt. And so what you can do is pair the Lightning Bolt with your Cleric casting Create Water to get some nice crits. This isn't a full lightning tempest build. Obviously, if you built into that, you're going to get a lot more lightning damage, but this is just kind of another option if the occasion arises, because you're also going to be using magic missile for those encounters too, and magic missile scaling up is also really good. But we do get to move on to our last feat. Now, normally I would take Alert, but we're already way kind of into the end game now, so I don't really know how much use you're going to get out of Alert. Now, because these builds right now I'm talking about with no gear in mind, going with ability score improvement to bump this up to 20, not a bad idea. There are going to be some charisma items that you can pick up, but say you miss them or something else happens, or you want to give them to another character. Ability improvement, that's probably what I would go with, or I would just go with Alert and just for the, the last act of the game, just to have that initiative and not being able to be surprised. It definitely comes in handy still. I don't want to come off like I'm downplaying it. It's just you would get more use out of it if you took it at level 8, but anyways, better late than never. But for this right now, I'm just going to go with just charisma to 20. And that'll basically be our sorcerer. And I don't really know if I need to go into a gameplay section, because you're just going to be throwing fireballs. I guess I can just kind of show what you can do to improve your fireball and other things you can do with your meta magics. So let's jump into that, a little bit of a gameplay section. And so we're in our little room here. It's not aggroed right now. It's pretty peaceful, and the usual times that we show off. So we show off some of the things we can do. Meta magic, twin spell. Now you can twin spell fireball. Okay, I was right before. You get a 2d10. I think it's around a level 5 or something like that, right? And now it's up to a 3d10. So Firebolt actually scales pretty nice as the game goes on. But yeah, you can twin spell this, which is going to be really handy. You're not going to want to twin spell greater invisibility unless you have 2 rangers. But this is what you would just cast your concentration. You would use your concentration slot on your ranger character. In this case, I have Will, so I didn't get rid of you, Will. And then Fireball, the best way to use Fireball is to just use it as a quicken spell. Now, if you want to make sure you guarantee your hit with it, because look, if you have an 85% chance, if you heighten it, wherever heighten is right here, it'll be a 98% chance. Now, the way Fireball works is they have to roll for a saving throw. And if they pass it, they still take half damage. But if they fail it, then they're going to take the full damage, and that's going to be a shit ton of damage. It's going to be so good. So keep that in mind. If you really need to score a fireball hit, Heightened will help you with that. But also with Heightened, you have something like a guaranteed almost a confusion check. This will be very helpful for some bosses. So keep that in mind. And then also Lightning. I guess it's the same thing with their disadvantage for their saving throw when you cast it with the lightning bolt. Don't know how often you're going to be using this. I don't really use that often. But say you don't want to use greater invisibility, well, you've got haste available to you. And you could technically serve as a haste battery yourself, like your cleric is, and just cover the last 2 party members that the cleric's not covering. So that could be a choice as well. And then Globe of Invulnerability. This would I would use this in some pretty niche cases, but it's super effective in those cases. And I don't want to spoil when you'd use this, but just know it's a very, very good spell. So yeah, that's the sorcerer. It's kind of plain, but man, it is super effective. There's a reason why you see so many fireball builds out there, because it's, first off, the spell effect itself is pretty damn awesome. So if you haven't played with a fireball sorcerer spellcaster, I highly encourage you to try that out. But yeah, this is sorcerers. It's pretty versatile spellcaster. There's a lot of things you can do with it, a lot of utility as well. And there's just so many ways to play with sorcerer. It kind of hurts the mind even to think about, because I feel like it's definitely the best damage dealing spellcaster. And to me, it basically just outshines wizard in a lot of ways. I'm still trying to find a really effective way to play wizard, but every time I do, I just end up saying fuck it and switching them to a sorcerer, because I feel like I get more bang for my buck out of them. But yeah, let me know how you guys like the build. Again, this rounds up my first whole party synergy. I don't know if in the future I'm just gonna wrap all the builds into one long fucking video, or if I should keep splitting them up. But the next builds, I got plenty of build in mind still, are going to be more individual based. So that means like I can just plug and play them into whatever roles I've set up. So yeah, so right now I have the frontline marshal kind of category, the dexterity lockpick category, utility support category. Sometimes you don't need that support utility, but I really like to have that in my party composition. You could really just double down on like 2 spellcasters. But anywho, and then also now I have my damage spell caster category. So I can kind of like, plug a, take one out and then plug an individual build in, and that's how that can work going forward. So anyways, that's enough rambling. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. Peace.